Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of GCSE Computer Networks using the Cisco Packet Tracer program. So here in Packet Tracer we have our simple LAN we connected together in part 1 of the video. We've got two PCs that we configured to have static IP addresses so they could communicate with each other. We used a subnet mask of 255.255.255, which would mean that the first 3 octets of the IP address give us the network address for this device, and then the last octet gives us the device number. Meaning with this subnet mask we can have up to 256 different devices on this network. Okay, we also added a network switch, and as you can see it has 2 of its ports, 24 ports up and running. So what we intend to do in this video is look at how we might add wireless devices to the network, and specifically we want to try and add a laptop into it. To begin with, we're just going to start looking at some of the types of network devices that we can have that are wireless. Essentially there's 2 real types. As the wireless access points, and we'll look at one of those first. And then we'll perhaps have a little look at something like a wireless router or a home router. So an access point, a simple access point, really just acts as a relay between a wireless device that connects to it and to a network. So here you can see it has in this case there is a LAN interface on this device, and obviously there is the wireless side of it as well. So we've got our LAN connection here, and then we've got our wireless kind of connection here. The other kind of device that we might kind of use to add Wi-Fi is a home kind of router or a wireless router device, and this time this is the one we're going to look at in a little bit more detail. The key difference between this is that this is a device you probably will recognize a bit more from your home networks. It has a little bit more in there. It has, in this case, it has 4 ports to act as a switch. It has 1 connection that would be normally connected off to the internet perhaps through a modem. But it also has obviously the wireless side to it as well. So we've got LAN, internet and wireless. Let's just consider the LAN port first of all. By default you have an IP address that's been set, and for us the default address is going to work with the IP addresses that we've been using so far. The first 3 octets are the same, so it's on the same network, and the value of 1 will not conflict with any of our other devices. So we're just going to leave that as it is. The next part would be our wireless. This is a fairly old device. It only seems to support the 2.4 gigahertz channel. A lot of wireless devices now would support AC, which would be both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, increasing the number of channels and devices that you could support on a wireless network. The first setting that's of interest is the SSID, which stands for unimaginatively a service set identifier. Most of us would just think of this as the name of the Wi-Fi network, perhaps like Joe's Cafe or something like that. By default, the way this one has been set up, there is no authentication required, but obviously if we were really setting up a Wi-Fi network, we would certainly want to password protect the network and use encryption. And we would set a passphrase here, and then when a device wants to connect to the network, it would need to connect using our SSID, which is in this case the word default, and whatever we set our secret kind of passphrase to there. But to keep things simple, we're just going to leave it disabled for now. Finally, we have the internet portion. This is a wireless router, which means it will be able to connect 2 networks together. It will route between our local area network, and more than likely for a home router it would then be connecting perhaps through a modem, maybe this through your telephone wire, or if you're lucky, a fibre optic cable, and that would allow you to connect your local area network out onto the LAN. Okay, you can see the only setting that we have here for the internet is something called Dhcp. And we're going to cover that a little bit more when we add our laptop in a moment. Okay, now let's connect the router to the switch through Ethernet. This time we'll do this manually, and we will pick the ports that we want to use on the different devices. So I'll pick the next available fast Ethernet slot, which is 3 on the switch. And on here I'm going to make sure that I connect the LAN to the Ethernet of the wireless router. Okay, so our indicators there are showing orange, so the handshaking going on between the two devices to set up this connection. If you wonder why my packet tracer uses these, if they match the same colours that you might see on little LEDs on the back of networking devices. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to try and, there we go, they're configured now. We're going to add a laptop to our network. So we grab a laptop and put that on there. Strangely, the laptop in packet tracer is configured, as you saw there, to have fast Ethernet and a Bluetooth connection, but not Wi-Fi. So one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to turn off the laptop for a moment, and we're going to pull out the Ethernet module, and we're going to add in a suitable Wi-Fi one. Now the wireless router supports 2.4 gigahertz, so we could use this one, but let's go for a newer network card that would support both the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands. Okay, what you might spot as soon as I power on the laptop now over here is that automatically there has been a connection made between the laptop and the wireless router. The reason that was able to happen was because if we look at the configuration of the laptop wireless interface, its SSID has been set to be default and authentication is disabled, and that matched the same settings that we have on our wireless router, so it's just automatically kind of connected. Obviously, normally if you're connecting to a Wi-Fi network for the first time, you would search for the Wi-Fi SSID, and if it was also set up, you'd need to enter the passphrase for authentication. But at the moment, that means that we are happily kind of connected the laptop to the wireless router. Okay, also now when we look at the settings of the laptop, we can notice that the wireless connection is up, but it's also got an IP address here, and previously we had to configure these devices over here manually. We had to statically type in some fixed IP addresses, but magically now somehow it would appear the wireless interface has been given an IP address. Okay, how did that happen? Well, we mentioned previously in the settings of the wireless router something called DHCP, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and this is enabled on the wireless router. Essentially, as the name suggests, it allows hosts to be dynamically configured. So when the wireless adapter in the laptop connected to the wireless router, it asked effectively for some network settings, and the DHCP server that was in the wireless router will have responded, and it will have given it first of all an IP address that meant the network part of the IP address 192.168.0 matched its LAN interface. And then starting at address 100, every time a device connects to it and asks for an IP address, it will give it the first one 100, and then the next device would be 101, etc. So that's why the laptop is all connected and happily running with an IP address. Further to that, if we kind of had a little look at some of the settings in here, it's also been, as well as using DHCP on its IP address, it's been given something called a gateway address. Now, we said earlier that one of the jobs of the wireless router would be to route traffic from our local area network, perhaps onto a wide area network or onto the internet through an internet service provider. So the gateway has been set up to be the same address as the wireless router, which will be effectively our gateway out onto the wide area network. There's a setting here for DNS server. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But otherwise, our laptop is now connected to the network, and we're ready to go. Thanks for watching. This was part 2 in the series of GCSE Networking with Packet Tracer. We've looked at how you can connect a wireless access point or a wireless router into a LAN. We've discussed how DHCP can be used to dynamically configure a network interface. And finally, we looked at how SSIDs are used to identify Wi-Fi networks and how we could enable encryption through a passphrase. Okay, now it's your turn. I hope you've downloaded and installed Packet Tracer. If not, there'll be a link in the description to where you can find this. But if you have, if you could also follow the link in the description to the Part 2 Packet Tracer activity file, you can use to test what you've learned from this video. In the next video, we're going to be looking at how we can use protocols such as HTTP and FTP.